It's marked avalanche area. This is an avalanche. Wow. Think about all that snow coming down. Hi, my name's Peter. I like motorcycles and motorcycle camping. Here on the west coast of Canada, the winters are relatively mild. You might live in a place where there's snow on the ground for several months of the year, and that pretty much excludes you from riding. But right here, we tend to have open roads for most of the year. Nonetheless, it does get cold, and it's close to freezing. So there are certain precautions that we need to know about in order to be able to ride more safely in the winter. So in this video, I want to go through 3 categories of things that you should be aware of, starting with the bike. So the categories are the bike and your gear and the road. All these things require a special attention for the winter. And mostly we think about our gear and bundling up, but there are other factors that are really important to keep yourself safe and comfortable when you're riding through the winter. So as always, you should be checking your tire pressure. But in the winter, the tire pressure will go down with the cold temperature. So it's especially important, and especially when you're riding not regularly, to check the tire pressure. So let's see what's happened. I haven't ridden this bike for a couple of weeks, and we'll check the tire pressure to see what's happened. It was at 36 previously. So let's take a look at the tire pressure now. I'm using a digital tire pressure gauge. A mechanic told me that the mechanical ones are more accurate. So if you think that's the case, leave a comment. Okay, I'm down to 23.8 here. So that's quite low. Not bad for riding off-road, but not what I would want to ride on the road. So that's dropped. That's lost about 10 pounds of pressure. So I'll have to pump that up a bit. You can see there's some rust has formed on the brake disc. That's pretty common, and the rust will form pretty quickly. It'll also wear off once I get riding. Let's try the pressure in the back tire. 25.4. Okay, so 25.4. So also has lost about 10 pounds of pressure. So I'll have to pump that up. There are 3 things with the bike to worry about. Here's one you might not know, and this surprised me when I learned about it very recently. Okay, so here's my oil filler cap. In the oil filter cap, you can see a little bit of this pink gunk. It's kind of hard to see in there. That's caused from condensation that gets into the crankcase when the engine cools. It's important if you're going to ride your bike in the winter to make sure you get it really well warmed up. A little short trip is just going to suck more cold air in, and then it's going to be, you're going to get more condensation. If you look at the video I made last year when I changed my oil for the first time, I had some cloudiness in the oil. That was due to a lot of condensation that had gotten in because I'd taken a series of short trips on the bike, and every time I take a trip, it would suck a little more condensation, a little more moisture in. So what I learned is short trips are bad. Longer trips, if you're going to ride in the winter, you want to make sure your engine gets up to the proper temperature for a little bit so that it drives all the moisture out, and then you're going to bring some more moisture in, but each time you're going to get rid of the moisture that was there. And the third thing, I'm going to do a chain cleaning today. My chain's not in bad condition, but your chain will suffer from riding in the winter. There's a lot of chemicals. There's chemicals they put down the road. I think it's calcium chloride, and they put that down to melt bits of ice and keep it from getting frosty. But it's very corrosive to metal, and that's why cars rust out. And your bike will pick that up, and it's especially vulnerable on the chain. So cleaning the chain regularly is extra important when you're riding in the winter. and make sure that you at least rinse it off after each ride.
One of the options for keeping your hands warm are these muffs that go over your handlebars. I don't like them at all. These ones are made by Oxford. In this case, with the bark busters on, I can't get it to fit over the turn signal, so I'd have to stick my thumb through here. It's just too awkward. I only used them once. In fact, I used them on half of a commute. I took them off and didn't even use them on the way home. They're just not at all practical as far as I'm concerned. So I'm like, forget that. My best option, I mean, heated grips are great. I don't have heated grips on this bike. I've had them on other bikes. Heated grips really extend your ability to keep your hands warm, and regardless of the season, because I've been out on camping trips in July when it gets cold up in the mountains and even frosty in the morning, and being able to put on your heated grips is really a bonus. So that's not just for winter riding. What I like to use here is a heated glove. It's got a little battery in it. I can do about 1.5 commutes on this, so I need to charge them up pretty much every day when I use them on full power. But these are actually made for snowmobiles. They're the best option that I know of to keep my hands warm. These are the gloves that I'm currently using. They're Alpine Star Dry Stars. I haven't really had them in serious rain, but the previous gloves that I used were these 5 gloves. 5 is the brand name, and they are, you know, supposed to be waterproof, and my experience is not really that waterproof. I had these ones last summer in September, and it was just a very wet day when I was coming back from Glacier National Park, and they just let me down. So I bought these ones, which again are marked as waterproof Tour W7 Dry Star gloves, and they should be warm and dry, but I haven't really tested them out. So for the warmth and really cold days, I like the heated gloves. I'm trying these ones out for the warmth and dryness. I also have on a heated vest, and I'm only wearing this for the purpose of this video. I've never actually used it because I don't find that my core gets cold, but this heated vest can just plug right in. I'll put it on and go for a ride with it and see how it goes. Wonder if it keeps my hands warm if I have more heat in my core. You know, if it's close to freezing and precipitating, then I don't ride. I ride in the rain, which is the most common in the winter here. So if you're going to ride year-round in British Columbia, you better be prepared for some rain. Okay, I can feel the vest. I can feel the vest giving me some heat around my back, my kidneys. So that's nice. We're still not sure, you know, why. The guy who sold me the bike that I got this vest when I bought a bike a couple of years ago, and I kept the vest even though I didn't keep the bike for a long time. You know, he said it saved his life when he had a commute in the winter. But like I said, I don't find that my core body temperature gets too low. It's just my fingers. I've got another layer in for this jacket that I've taken out, so I could add another layer in the jacket as well as the pants. You know, one of the advantages of wearing proper waterproof riding pants is they're quite warm. There's no airflow that goes through it. In the summer, that's terrible, but at the rest of the year, it's actually quite handy. So I find that 8 degrees is kind of the lowest I can ride comfortably without taking some extra precautions, right? Riding up, one of the places that I work is about a half an hour away, and below 8 degrees my fingers were starting to get numb. And I've ridden it as low as 2 degrees, but with anything under 4 degrees I need my heated gloves. So I don't know if you can see, there's kind of stripes on the road, and those stripes are due to the trucks that lay down the calcium chloride. They drop a liquid onto the road, so that liquid will be splashing up to some degree onto my chain. The dash says it's 7 degrees, which, you know, is probably within a couple of degrees, but if it's close to 0, which is freezing, right, that's 32 Fahrenheit, then there could be places where the road is colder than the air temperature, and so that's when you have a danger of black ice. So that's always a consideration, that when water's running onto the cold part of the road, it could form a very thin sheen of ice, and that's what they call black ice. So you always have to be aware of the possibility that there's very low traction ahead. The sun is low in the horizon. It's especially the further north you get, the lower the sun is in the winter. So we never get the sun right above us at this time of year. So visibility is problematic for several reasons. One is the low sun, which means that for people who are driving towards the sun, their visibility is impacted by staring into the sun. It's like a late afternoon in any other time of year. But it's only 3 o'clock right now. So it's just a very, very long time of low sun. Of course, when you have rain or fog, you're going to get a lot more visibility problems. And you have to always remember that cars aren't expecting to see a motorcycle this time of year. So every risk factor in the environment is accentuated in the winter. There's 2 motorcycles, but it's such a great day. It's a Sunday. It's a Sunday and it's sunny, so everybody who can get out is going to get out. You know, that's one of the reasons for keeping your bike insured year-round. It's easy to do with a smaller bike. This is one of the things I found with my BMW. It costs too much to insure it year-round, even though it might get a couple of days in January when it'd be really nice to get out. I'm paying over $100 a month for insurance, so if I get 2 rides a month, that's $50 a ride just for the insurance. Whereas the insurance on my Royal Enfield 450, I just bought a year's worth for $400. So I mentioned black ice earlier, and there's no danger of black ice on the road on a day like today, but you can see that despite the fact that it hasn't rained for days, the road's wet, right? We get a lot of condensation on the road, so you're always dealing with roads that are somewhat more slippery than they would be in the summer. And so that's something to beware of. You know, it's not the time of year for you to test your skill at cornering. It's not the time of year for you to push the limits on riding at speed. There's a lot of pleasure to be had from riding, and you can still enjoy taking a corner, but You just have to know that you have less room, you have less of a safety margin. And there are specific places where you want to be really careful. You know, like the paint on the road is slippery when wet, right? It's slippery when frozen. One time I was riding in Vancouver and I just came to a stop and put my foot down and I almost lost it because the paint is so slippery. And then these days there's a lot of decorations that are painted on the road. So I don't think we have one here. This is an ordinary crosswalk. But you know what I'm talking about, is where they've got crosswalks that are, I'll see if I can find some footage. I mean, here's an ordinary crosswalk, right? So these paint strips that are going across are much more slippery than the road. So that's something to be aware of. There's places where you're turning a corner and there's a crosswalk and there's a lot of paint there. That stuff is something that I worry about a lot, so need to be aware of that. Need to be aware of anywhere where water's running across the road, you're going to get a chance of black ice if the air temperature is getting closer to freezing. If you're crossing a bridge or another place where the roadbed is more exposed, then there's a chance of freezing there. Here's a bun of paint that's for the fire department here. Here we come back into the sun, or it's blinding. Straight into the setting sun. It's only, I can't see the clock even. I think it's only about 3:30. Like I say, that's one of the drawbacks about riding in the winter, is that if the sun's out, it's always low on the horizon.